Ego is the ruination of God. Ego is what causes suffering, unhappiness, conflicts, difficulties, problems. Ego is the poison of society. Ego is devoid of God. Ego is the devil. Ego is hell. Ego is selfish. Ego is not an entity or someone. You don't have a big ego. You don't have a little ego. Ego is ego, irrespective of what you might consider ego to be, big or small. In fact, ego isn't something tangible. Ego is an activity. Ego is what you are doing right now. Ego is at the root of seeking, at the root of depression, of doubt, of unnecessary fear. When we hear people say you must die while alive, that means ego death. Ego is not a something. You haven't got an ego. However, ego is destroying whatever you might think you are. Ego is what I call the self-contraction, represented by the clenched fist. And the open hand is God. The open hand disposition is the divine disposition. For the body-mind, before we add this self-contraction, which is ego, before we keep doing tension in our head and in our body, we are already happy. The body-mind is already an open vessel. Due to whatever you might think, we all like to give everything in life a reason for happening. But in fact, there's no reason for why we do ego. Ego is not necessary. If you say you have an ego, what exactly is having an ego? Now, I am pinching this skin. Prior to pinching it, there's no pain. Prior to pinching it, there's no redness. Prior to pinching it, it's fine. I'm not remembering this bit of my body. But as soon as I pinch that bit, I'm remembering that bit. and remembering that bit of the body. And it hurts. That's the contraction that we are doing inside of ourselves. Find this out for yourself. Find that you are doing this contraction that is not necessary. It's at the root of the ruination of relationships, the ruinations of simply being happy. The self-contraction is not necessary. When there's no self-contraction, the body-mind is free to be an expression of the divine, an expression of God, an expression of one's true self. The self-contraction interferes with God. The self-contraction strangulates God. We do not need to do the self-contraction. I don't need to do that. The body-mind is inherently happy, irrespective of whether there's aches and pains or whether you're going to die today or whether you're due to die soon or contract cancer or what have you. It's not a nice thought, of course it's not. We don't want the body-mind to be ill, diseased. However, there's no getting away from the fact, but this has to be realized, that the body-mind is inherently okay. Inherently means its natural state, innate state. Now there's a little essay here written by Darfree John in his book called Compulsory Dancing. And in the little essay, a few pages, allow your life to be God's business. You see, we think we're in charge. That's the ego. We think we have to be in control. That's the ego. Liberation from ego, enlightenment from ego, is living already happily, already at peace, already in relationship, already joy, already delight, already intimate, already functioning, already full of energy. But we keep disturbing all of that. It's not necessary. The self-contraction is not necessary, but every individual is doing the self-contraction. I'm able to testify to this because after so many years of countering the self-contraction, I live more or less free of the self-contraction, day in, day out. The body-mind becomes ego-less, full of love and joy and happiness. I was first introduced to this understanding some 35 years ago, and it's important that the world gets to know about what ego is. He says, you are disturbed. You are uptight. You are not surrendered bodily. And you are working on internal programs for ultimate surrender. The truth is that you are simply afraid, not surrendered. Those programs are what you do when you do not surrender emotionally. When you cannot see that you are simply contracting and cannot release the contraction and allow whatever is happening to happen. You must trust the process of your own life, whether it is to go mad, to become ill, to work, to succeed, or to die. Be free of fear. Surrender to the person of God, the actual living God. Trust the divine altogether. Give yourself up emotionally to God. Do it to the point that the physically based fear of death vanishes on the basis of trust alone. Practice complete devotion and absolute surrender. Do not just tread the path of gradual attainment in your emotional approaches to God. Give yourself up completely in this moment. See, we don't know how to possibly. But if we did, we'd still be afraid. The self-contraction is a bit like an anchor. It anchors you. It gives you a position in life. But the ego is not nice. It's a horrible way to live. The ego is nothing but selfishness, self-centered, narcissistic. These are the results of the self-contraction. Living like this, just look around you. And if you're not living like this in your own sort of little world, you're dramatizing it. Look at the road rage. Look how everyone behaves on the roads. Everyone is wanting to get from A to their destination, irrespective of whether they need to rush or not. It's all an illusion. Everyone's deluded. Everyone is mad. Everyone is running around like chickens, headless chickens. Surrender to the person of God, the actual living God. Trust the divine altogether. Give yourself up emotionally to God. Do it to the point that the physically based fear of death vanishes on the basis of trust alone. Practice complete devotion and absolute surrender. Do not just tread the path of gradual attainment in your emotional and ceremonial approaches to God. Give yourself up completely in this moment. Give up everything at every depth and every area of your life. Allow life to be the theatre of God, in which what seems to be appropriate and necessary in your case will be accomplished spontaneously. Allow all of life to be God's business. But people think God is some person up there judging you with white beard. God's not a person. God is a disposition, the open hand disposition. Consciousness. Be consciousness under all circumstances, no matter what you're doing. So stop doing this by remembering this, the open hand. You've got to find someone you love, and don't forget that lover. You've got to find an agent. You've got to find that bridge. This is my bridge, Adidas Samraj. Check him out. He's my lover, my greatest friend, my most intimate of friends. Greater than any other teacher that has ever walked this life. I don't like the word great, but let's say he's the greatest expert on what it is to live like an open hand, 24/7. It makes you vulnerable, but that's how the body-mind is. In the Bible it says, become like children again. A true child, a child who's being a child, truly being a child, is very vulnerable and very happy and very sensitive. If you wish to live an ego-less life, then first of all, understand what it is that you're doing. If you're not certain that you want to live an ego-less life, see for yourself how horrible you are as an ego in your daily lives. As an ego, see what you're up to. Full of manipulation, full of strategic games to get your own way. Everyone thinks they've got a right to live in the way they do, grabbing this and grabbing that, dominating this and dominating that, controlling this and controlling that. No one has a right to live like they are, like they're doing. Allow God to live you. God is the spirit, energy, life force, happiness, joy. Yeah. Thank you for listening. Allow all of life to be God's business. Whatever arises, high or low, such a life will simply be surrendering to the point of happiness, giving up to God completely. This is what trust and faith is all about. You need not know anything. It's not about the head and the brain and the mind. That's all egoic nonsense. All your beliefs, all your myths, all your whims, all your strategies. So it's all to do with this, which we don't need to do. Everyone is a heavy grip, suffocating God. God is in here. Let me out, let me out, let me out. Everyone's got an image they want to uphold. Everyone's looking to be praised. Everyone wants ticks and gold stars. Everyone wants to be right. My point of view is better than your point of view. Nonsense. Realize God. Realize that reality that is prior to all of this nonsense. This creates clouds. It can never be truly happy. It's only when this is undone, when the body-mind is no longer doing this, that you can be happy, that you are already happy. Realize this as I have realized.